The flood covered the whole earth and killed everyone except Noah and his family. Nevertheless, the flood did not solve the problem of the evil human nature. Therefore, pride overtook man again, and rebellion against God would rise up among this next generation and the generation after this, because the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? The seed of wickedness in man became great again, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was evil continually. Corruption sprang up again according to the deceitful lust and wickedness of man. Ham was the youngest son of Noah. Ham also had a son, and named him Cush, and Cush was the grandson of Noah. Cush took a wife in those days in his old age, and his wife bore a son, and they called his name Nimrod. Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah. Nimrod grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. Nimrod began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. He was a skilled hunter and warrior who became a powerful king. Nimrod was the first mighty king mentioned in the Bible. Moreover, the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, Calah, and Resen between Nineveh and Calah, that was the principal city. During this time, the sons of men again began to rebel and transgress against God. Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brethren, and fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about, and the Lord blessed him by delivering all the enemies of his brethren in his hands, and God prospered him from time to time in his battles, and Nimrod reigned upon earth. When Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brethren and the children of Japheth, so that they were in the power of their enemies. Nimrod went forth at that time and assembled all the sons of Cush and their families, about 460 men, and he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances about 80 men, and he gave them their hire. Therefore, he went with them to battle, and when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that went with him. He said to them, "Do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered into our hands, and you may do with them as you please." Therefore, all the men that went were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them, and subdued them, and Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. Nimrod took some of their children as security, and they were all servants to him and to his brethren, and Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. When Nimrod had joyfully returned from battle, after having conquered his enemies, all his brethren, together with those who knew him before, assembled to make him king over them, and they placed the royal crown upon his head. Nimrod set over his subjects and people, princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom among kings. He placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host, and he dignified him and elevated him above all his princes. Terah was the son of Nahor and grandson of Serug. Serug was in the family line of Shem. He is a son of Ru and father of Nahor, who is listed as an ancestor of Jesus in Luke's genealogy. When Serug was 30 years old, he begot Nahor. Nahor was 29 years old, and begot Terah. Nahor lived 119 years and had more sons and daughters. Terah lived 70 years, and was the father of Abram, Haran, and Nahor. Terah named his son Nahor after his grandfather. While Nimrod was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, he advised his counselors to build a city for his palace, and they did so. They found a large valley opposite the east, and they built him a large and extensive city, and Nimrod called the name of the city that he built, Shinar, for the Lord had vehemently shaken his enemies and destroyed them. However, Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord, and he was wickeder than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days. He made gods of wood and stone, he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against the Lord, and taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways, and Mardon, or Major, his son was wickeder than his father Nimrod was. Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great. All the nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and bowed down to him, and they brought him offerings, and he became their lord and king, and they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar, and Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. Terah, Nahor's son, and prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subjects, and the king and his princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. The king raised him in those days and dignified him above all his princes that were with him. Terah later took a wife, and her name was Amphilo the daughter of Cornebo, and Amphilo conceived and bears him a son in those days. Terah was 70 years old when the child was born, and he called the name of his son that was born to him Abram. It was in the night that Abram was born, that all the servants of Terah, and all the wise men of Nimrod, and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. When all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward heaven that night to look at the stars, and they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east and ran in the heavens, and he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. Therefore, all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight, and the advisers understood this matter, and they knew its importance. Therefore, they said to each other, "This only promises the child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply, and possess all the earth, he, and his children forever, and he and his seed will slay great kings, and inherit their lands." Moreover, the wise men and conjurers went home that night, and in the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. They spoke and said to each other, "Behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from King Nimrod, it has not been made known to him. Therefore, should this thing get known to the king in the latter days, he will say to us, Why have you concealed this matter from me, and then we will all suffer death. Therefore, now let us go and tell the king the sight which we saw, and the interpretation thereof, and we will then remain clear." They did so, and they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground. They spoke. "We heard that a son was born to Terah the son of Nahor, the prince of your host, and we last night went to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. However, when your servants went out from the house of Terah, to go to our respective homes to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed, and swallowed up 4 great stars, from the 4 sides of heavens. Therefore, your servants were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified, and we made our judgment upon the sight, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof, that this thing applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly, and become powerful, and kill all the kings of the earth, and inherit all their lands, he, and his seed forever. Now our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted you with what we have seen concerning this child. If it seems good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he grows up and increase in the land, and his evil increases against us, that our children and we perish through his evil." When the king heard their words and they seemed good in his sight, he sent and called for Terah. Terah came before the king. King Nimrod said to Terah, "I have been told that a son was last night born to you. It was also told to me what was observed in the heavens at his birth." Nimrod explained the vision to Terah. "Now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us, and I will give you for his value, your house full of silver and gold." Then Terah answered the king and said to him, "My lord and king, I have heard your words, and your servant will do all that his king desires. However, my lord and king, I will tell you what happened to me last night, that all may see what advice the king will give his servant, and then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken." And the king said, "Speak." Terah said to the king, "Ayon, son of Mord, came to me last night, saying, give unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave you, and I will give you silver and gold, straw and provender for its value. And I said to him, Wait till I see the king concerning your words, and behold whatever the king says, that will I do. Now my lord and king, behold I have made this thing known to you, and the advice which my king will give unto his servant, that will I follow. The king heard the words of Terah, and his anger was kindled because he was the one who gave Terah the horse, and he considered Terah in the light of a fool. Nevertheless, the king answered Terah, and he said to him, Are you so silly, ignorant, or deficient in understanding, to do this thing, to give your beautiful horse for silver and gold or even for straw and food? Are you so short of silver and gold that you should do this thing, because you cannot obtain straw and food to feed your horse? Moreover, what is silver and gold to you, or straw and food, that you should give away that fine horse which I gave you, like which there is none to be had on the whole earth? The king left off speaking, and Terah answered the king, saying, Like unto this has the king spoken to his servant, I beg you, my lord and king, what is this which you did say unto me, saying, Give your son that we may slay him, and I will give you silver and gold for his value? What will I do with silver and gold after the death of my son? Who will inherit me? Surely then at my death, the silver and gold will return to my king who gave it. Therefore, when the king heard the words of Terah, and the parable which he brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him, and Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, All that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desire to do to his servant, that let him do, yes, even my son, he is in the king's power. Without value and in exchange for him, his 2 brothers that are older than he. The king said to Terah, No, but I will purchase your younger son for a price. Again, Terah answered the king, saying, I beg you my lord and king to let your servant speak a word before you, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, Let my king give me 3 days' time until I consider this matter within myself and consult with my family concerning the words of my king, and he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. The king hearkened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time, and Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came home to his family and spoke to them all the words of the king, and the people were greatly afraid. It was in the 3rd day that the king sent to Terah, saying, Send me your son for a price as I spoke to you, and should you not do this I will send and slay all you have in your house, so that you will not even have a dog remaining. Therefore, Terah hurried, as the thing was serious from the king, and he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid had borne to him that day, and Terah brought the child to the king and received value for him. The Lord was with Terah in this matter, that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death, and the king took the child from Terah and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram, and this was concealed from him from that day, and it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence not to allow Abram's death. Terah then took Abram secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave. He brought them their provisions monthly, and the Lord was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up, and Abram was in the cave 10 years, and the king and his princes, soothsayers, and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram. Haran, the oldest son of Terah, and Abram's oldest brother also took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the wife of Haran conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Lot. She conceived again and bears a daughter, and she called her name Milcah, and she again conceived and bears a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. Haran was 42 years old when he begot Sarai, which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram, and in those days Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, as the king and his subjects had forgotten the affair of Abram. When Abram came out from the cave, where he lived from birth with his mother and his mother's maid, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instruction of the Lord and his ways, and no man knew where Abram was, and Abram served Noah and Shem for a long time. Abram was in Noah's house 39 years, and Abram knew the Lord from 3 years old, and he went in the ways of the Lord until the day of his death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him. However, all the sons of men in the earth in those days greatly transgressed against the Lord, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth, and the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves, at that time, every man made his own god, gods of wood and stone which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver, and the sons of men served them, and they became their gods. Therefore, King Nimrod and all his servants, and Terah with all his household were the first of those that served gods of wood and stone. Terah had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year, and he served each one monthly, and every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. All that generation were wicked in the sight of the Lord, and they thus made every man his god, and they forsook the Lord who had created them, and there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth, who knew the Lord, for they served each man his own god, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew the Lord in those days. Abram, the son of Terah, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and the Lord was with him. The Lord gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation were vain, and that all their gods were vain and was of no avail. Abram remained in the house of Noah and there knew the Lord and his ways, and he served the Lord all the days of his life, but all that generation forgot the Lord, and served other gods of wood and stone, and rebelled all their days. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech, and it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks, and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. They said, Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top is in the heavens, let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. All the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Phut, Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan with their families, and they said to each other, Come, let us build ourselves a city and in it a strong tower, and its top reaching heaven, and we will make ourselves famed, so that we may reign upon the whole world, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, that we may reign mightily over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. Therefore, they all went before King Nimrod, and they told the king these words, and the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. Moreover, all the families assembled consisting of about 600,000 men, and they went to seek an extensive piece of ground to build the city and the tower, and they sought in the whole earth, and they found none like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, about 2 days' walk, and they journeyed there, and they dwelt there. They began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower that they had imagined completing. The building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it, and while they were building against the Lord God of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend into heaven. In this, all these people and all the families divided themselves in 3 parts. The first said, We will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, We will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, We will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts, and he saw the city and the tower which they were building. They built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower, and on account of its height the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their climb to it, until those who went up had completed a full year, and after that, they reached to the builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus was it done daily. And behold, these ascended and others descended the whole day, and if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it, but if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. Therefore, the Lord knew their thoughts, and it came to pass when they were building, they cast their arrows toward the heavens, And all the arrows fell upon them filled with blood, and when they saw them, they said to each other, Surely we have slain all those that are in heaven. For this was from the Lord in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from off the face of the ground. In addition, they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily until many days and years were elapsed. The Lord God came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built, and the Lord said, Indeed the people are one and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do, now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. The Lord God said to his Son, Jesus, the Word of God, and the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, Come let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man will not understand the language of his neighbor, and they did so unto them, and from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue, and when the builder took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, that he would die. Moreover, they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. The Lord smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. Those who said, We will ascend to heaven and serve our gods, became like apes and elephants, and those who said, We will smite the heaven with arrows, the Lord killed them, one man through the hand of his neighbor, and the 3rd division of those who said, We will ascend to heaven and fight against him, the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. Also, those who were left among them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. They ceased building the city and the tower, therefore, they called that place Babel, for there the Lord confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. As to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part thereof, and a fire also descended from heaven and burned another third, and the other third is left to this day, and it is of that part which was upward, and its circumference is 3 days' walk, and many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. Therefore, the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore, its name is Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there, the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Shem, the son of Noah, also had children. He was the father of all the children of Eber. Eber also had sons, one son was named Peleg, and the other son was Joktan. Peleg's name meant division, because during his days the earth was divided. Peleg died in the 48th year of the life of Abram, and all the days of Peleg were 239 years. When the Lord had scattered the sons of men on account of their sin at the tower, behold, they spread forth into many divisions, and all the sons of men were dispersed into the 4 corners of the earth. All the families became each according to their own language, its land, or its city. The sons of men built many cities according to their families, in all the places where they went, and throughout the earth where the Lord had scattered them. Some of them built cities in places from which there were changes that resulted after the flood, and they called these cities after their own names, or the names of their children, or after their particular occurrences. The sons of Japheth, the son of Noah, according to their cities and languages, went and built themselves cities in the places where they were scattered after the tower, and they called all their cities after their names, and the sons of Japheth were divided upon the face of the earth into many divisions and languages. The children and families of Ham, according to their languages and cities, when they were scattered to their countries after the tower, went and built themselves cities as they found fit places for them, and they called their cities after the names of their fathers. The children of Canaan also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after their names, 11 cities, and others without number, and the 4 men from the family of Ham went to the land of the plain. These are the names of the 4 men, Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. These men built themselves 4 cities in the land of the plain, and they called the names of their cities after their own names. In addition, they, and their children and all belonging to them dwelt in those cities, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly and dwelt peaceably. In the 2nd year after the tower, a man from the house of Ashur, whose name was Bela, went from the land of Nineveh to sojourn with his household wherever he could find a place, and they came opposite the cities of the plain against Sodom, and they dwelt there. The man rose up and built there a small city, and called its name Bela, after his name, that is the land of Zor unto this day. The families of the children of Shem, according to their language and cities, after they were scattered upon the earth after the tower, went and built for themselves cities, and they called them after their own names and occurrences. Every kingdom, city, and family of the families of the children of Noah built themselves many cities after they were scattered upon the earth after the tower. They established governments in all their cities, in order to be regulated by their orders, so did all the families of the children of Noah forever. Nimrod son of Cush was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over it and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. In the beginning of his kingdom, these are the names of the 4 cities which he built, and he called their names after the occurrences that happened to them in the building of the tower. He called the first Babel, saying, because the Lord there confounded the language of the whole earth, and the name of the second he called Erech, because from there God dispersed them. The third he called Akkad, saying there was a great battle at that place, and the fourth he called Calneh, because his princes and mighty men were consumed there, and they vexed the Lord, they rebelled and transgressed against him. Nimrod also went from there to build Assyria, Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, Calah, and Resen between Nineveh and Calah. When Nimrod had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed in them the remainder of his people, his princes, and his mighty men that were left in his kingdom. Therefore, Nimrod dwelt in Babel, and he there renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects, and he reigned securely, and the subjects and princes of Nimrod called his name Amraphel, saying that at the tower his princes and men fell through his means. Nevertheless, Nimrod did not return to the Lord, and he continued in wickedness and teaching wickedness to the sons of men, and Mardon, his son, was worse than his father was, and continued to add to the abominations of his father. He caused the sons of men to sin, therefore it is said, from the wicked goes forth wickedness. Amen. If this video was a blessing to you, please subscribe, like, and share.